Thank you very much, Isiu. And also, I would like to congratulate the panel one session, and it's putting a lot of pressure really on this second session. And really for the Bursa Carbon Exchange, as our CEO, Dato' Omar, has alluded earlier, our role is not just to deliver an exchange. If we have to deliver an exchange, the exchange actually went live last Monday, and we would have delivered our mandate. But I think the bigger mandate here that we have to deliver is really to build up a VCM ecosystem such that our supermarket can be filled not just with the global credits, but also the Malaysian credits. And this platform is really helping to serve my KPI, because in the next few years, the KPI is really to onboard more of the Malaysian credits. But as the previous speakers have alluded to, this is particularly a very new area, the Bursa Carbon Market team. None of us really actually came from the carbon market team. My background is from renewable energy and some parts of it in the oil and gas. But here we are pivoting to a very new frontier. And of course, with us today, the purpose of this particular platform is really to deliver what Dr. Pak Riza is saying, act, deliver. So this is what we are doing. And in this particular session, the format is going to be slightly different. So we are going to invite these experts who actually have been developing projects to share with us. We're giving them like about 10 minutes to share with us about their projects and their challenges and what they felt the key success factors are. And after that, I'll ask them one or two questions. Then we will open the questions to the floor. So on this note, I'd like to introduce the speakers, or rather I'll get the speakers to self-introduce themselves. Starting from my left-hand side, I have Anna Oscar. Anna flew in all the way from Brisbane. She is the head of corporate solutions and research for the APAC region from Viridios Capital. Maybe Anna, would you like to just give us a few words about yourself? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So first of all, thank you very much. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with my fellow panelists and with Dr. Chen. I'm really inspired by what you achieved so far. And I actually came to Malaysia, to Sarawak. Somebody in a keynote speeches mentioned it, and I'm really inspired by opportunity of the broader Malaysia, but also what I've seen in Sarawak, both across the nature-based solution, across the CCS, hydrogen opportunities, as well as the building the technology hubs in there. So the sky is the limit, basically, for Malaysia. So thank you for the opportunity in participating in this panel. As I'm working for Viridios Capital, part of the Viridios group. We have three pillars of the companies. One is VAI, which is basically machine learning and AI-based platform providing the transparency in terms of pricing, valuation, and analytics for carbon projects. We actually have a collaboration with the carbon credit rating agency, so we're collaborating with Silvera, for example, with Louis out there. The other one was we also stimulating the demand. We have the VT Carbon joint venture with Tribeca fund managers, which invest in the voluntary carbon markets. And myself, I work for the VC, which we like to call ourselves ecosystem enabler. So we're basically working across the value chain of carbon credits, providing the solution for the corporates who want to structure the carbon credit strategy, which then fits and aligns and complements a broader decarbonization strategy. That's very important. There's lots of criticism, and we mentioned in earlier speeches as well, around the greenwashing. I'm yet to see the company that I'm working with that says, I won't decarbonize, I will just buy the carbon credits. And I think Silvera also had a piece on it that actually companies that invest in carbon credits also do really well in terms of the decarbonization. So we work with those companies who want to develop those strategy. We build a portfolio of carbon credits. We do the due diligence for the companies that want to invest in the carbon projects. But we also work with the developers at different stages of the project development. We are developer ourselves in Australia, but globally we invest in the carbon credits developers at the headco level, we invest at the project level, but we also work with the project that are more mature But as Silvera pointed out, it's not really that the project is bad. Sometimes it has some gaps in implementation. Sometimes it just needs to catch up with evolving science and the policy. So we're working with those projects to restructure them. So again, thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you so much, Anna, and we really look forward to you having an office someday in Malaysia.
I'm also
yeah,
looking
no
forward to
pressure,
this.
but
Yes.
anytime soon next year would be very helpful. Yeah, Sadanan, it's wonderful to see you back. I think Southeast Asia is almost like your second home. I met you in March of this year in Kuching also, and then I heard that you have just been back to Vietnam for a couple of weeks, and then you flew back to India, and then last night you flew here. So yeah, tell us a bit more about what you are doing in EKI Energy Services. And by the way, Sadanan, he is the Deputy General for Business Development. Thank you.
Hi everyone, very good evening. Firstly, congratulate to Bursa team for organizing this forum and on the launch of their handbook. As rightly said, yes, Southeast Asia is kind of my second home. I have been traveling here continuously. I mean, in last 3 months, I have not seen my family so much. I'm just traveling to these countries only. So at EK Energy Services Limited, I head the team of Southeast Asia, where my role is to develop business, develop carbon credits, develop project, to see what kind of project where EKI can invest in, and develop credits. We are very excited to do and start our first project in Malaysia, and that's what the presentation that I have will give you more insight what we are here for. So yeah, we are in a very exciting stage right now if I consider the overall carbon market. There are a lot of turmoils as well going on, which makes us, company like us and Vitol and all, we are all here, to develop these credits. And it makes this entire industry full of excitement, because every morning you never know what news comes in, what happens to the market, and what happens to the prices of carbon credits, because there were a lot of questions that was coming in the last panel on the pricing. So yeah, I mean, very excited for this forum to continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sadanan. And next we have Mr. Ng Boon Pew. He is the General Manager of Portfolio and Growth under Shell Nature-Based Solutions that's based in Singapore. Now, Shell is a company that means a lot to me, because basically I grew up with Shell actually supporting me. Dad works in Shell all his life. So it is quite unusual, oil and gas company moving to nature-based. So maybe you'd like to tell a bit about yourself and also, Shell Nature Solutions. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Chen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Bursa Malaysia for inviting us to contribute in this, I would call it a timely dialogue on the carbon market, which is a very significant time for Malaysia. Well, my name is Boon, as what is being introduced, and I'm with the nature-based solution for Shell. And you must be wondering what Shell as an energy company to do with nature-based, right? So I'm going to reserve this a little bit later to my presentation to share with you a little bit. And but I'm a Malaysian, currently based in Singapore. Nice to be able to join this forum.
Thank you very much, Boon. And we also welcome you to maybe one day come back to Malaysia as well. Yeah, we do deserve that, don't we? Thank you very much, Boon. And last and certainly not least, in fact, very importantly, we have Juan Chang here. And Juan, he's actually from Permian Global. Now, Permian Global, we saw just now during the launch of the VCM handbook, some of the pictures are actually taken from the Kwamut project. And I think the minister himself have also mentioned that we are waiting for our very first auction of the Malaysian credits, and it will be from your project. So we really look forward to your project. Maybe, Juan, you can give us a little bit about your background and what you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Bursa Malaysia, for the invitation. Congratulations for all the work so far. We see that there is a lot of things happening, going on here, and we definitely see a bright future for the carbon markets in Malaysia. Good afternoon, everyone. As I said, I'm a Peruvian forest engineer, but I wanted to share an anecdote, why I'm here, let's say. My first job I was a park ranger in the Peruvian Amazon. 2 years ago, I was That's more than 23, 24 years ago. And at that time, what they give you in order to protect, I think it was like 250,000 hectares of protected area, was a flashlight. That's all you have. You don't even get the batteries. Because at that time, conservation, I mean, when was conservation a business? When was restoring forest a business? And at that time, I remember one time I was going out of the forest after patrolling, and our boat, made of wood, started sinking. We had to fix it with the banana leaves. So that was my experience in conservation more than 20 years ago. When the carbon market started, back in 2005 more or less, it was the first time that I saw financing coming to do those things that I was trying to do when I started my career. So I became a forest auditor back in 2005-06, so I've been involved in the carbon markets for a while. And now I'm very happy to share what we have been doing the last years here in Malaysia, and I have my presentation ready to show what we have now.
Thank you very much, Juan. Then, without any further delay, I would like to invite our first presenter, Anna, to the podium here to deliver your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I went through the brief introduction. I'm not sure whether it is working. Can I move to the next? Awesome. So me and technology, as always. Thank you very much. So I already introduced the Viridis Group and Viridis Capital. So without further ado, I just want to talk about the challenges, the opportunities, and the key success factors. So it's a little anecdote of mine. I was working on this slide as Dr. Chan asked me to think about the key success factors and opportunities. I started drafting. And then my teenage daughter, that is never shy of the feedback, was passing by and goes, "Oh my God, what is it?" So that talks to, I think, James' comments about, our hate for the acronyms and all the complexity within the markets. So I said, I want to actually articulate the complexity of what we're dealing with, but also the opportunity and the challenges. And I asked my daughter, does it work? And she says, well, that gives me anxiety. So I don't want to make you anxious, but there's no way of shying away from the fact that there is a complexity in the markets. We're talking about the emerging assets, which have inherent risk. We're talking quite often about the geographies that also come with own challenges. We're talking about constantly changing policy. We're talking about the various stakeholders, not only limited to the buyers, but also increasingly investors, countries, financial institutions. So it's without a doubt very complex and challenging. So this leads me to the fact how in Viridis Group we're looking at the quality. So thank you very much for the segue from the previous panel. And when we're talking about the quality, we're talking about the quality that we assess looking at the projects we're sourcing for our buyers, but also when we're talking about the quality when we develop our own projects or working with the project developers. So we're looking at the 3 pillars. So it's really important to emphasize that while we're talking about the carbon projects, I believe that the reason why we just limited to the carbon and not talking explicitly about the community and biodiversity, because while it's very difficult to articulate what is 1 ton of carbon, it's still way easier to measure measure impact on community or biodiversity. But those 3 pillars are crucial in assessing the quality of the carbon credits. They're more important to interplay within the nature-based solution, but they're also important when we're talking about the technology-based project. Now, how do we assess the quality within those 3 pillars? We are actually looking at the metric structure. So we were looking at those elements through 4 different perspectives. The first one is the methodology. So we're looking at the methodology in terms of whether the methodology are meeting the criteria of additionality, leakage, permanence, no harm, and the avoidance of the double counting. However, it's really important when we're looking at creating a project or assessing the project to emphasize that methodology is just the starting point. So it's impossible for Vera to be as agile as the project developer in responding to changing science or changing the policy. So it's really down to the developer to create the project that is of the highest standard, looking at methodology as the bare minimum. Now we're also looking at the industry, and this is where again the complexity comes. How the industry is assessing the quality of the projects. And when I'm talking about the industry, I will start with the industry as a carbon market. So we're talking about our colleagues from IETA. We are talking, and I'm gonna use acronyms, apologies, but we're talking about the VCMI, but we're also talking about the adjacent industries. So industries that are becoming stakeholder within voluntary carbon markets. So how the CORSIA is looking at the quality, how the financial institutions, which are increasingly looking at the investment in the voluntary carbon markets, are looking at the quality. And that leads me to the next element, which is the policy. So again, the policy, it's multi-layered. When we're talking about the quality of the projects from the perspective of meeting the policy criteria, we're talking about the policy at the state level, at the regional level, at the country level, and then we are bringing it to the level of the Article 6. So again, multi-layered, very complex, but more importantly, as Dr. Raza mentioned, it's also constantly evolving, and it's interplay of the policy of voluntary carbon markets and the compliance market, and also the Article 6 scheme and the host country schemes. So super challenging. And finally, legal. So when we're looking at the development of the project, or we're looking at the due diligence of the project, legal is the paramount. And when I'm talking about the legal, it's also in the context of commercial agreements between the different parties, buyers and the seller, whether it's the host country and the buyer country, whether it's the developer and the corporate. But we're also talking a lot around the legal rights to the land, and different countries within the Global South will have a different land ownership structure. So some of them will be structure whereby the land is owned by the state or the forestry is owned by the state. In other jurisdictions, the land is owned by the local communities. Regardless of who is owner of the land, we also need to answer the question whether the land ownership and carbon rights ownership is aligned. So that's all the complexity. Now, when we just dive deep into what constitutes quality carbon, I won't go into all of these elements as we have limited time. Additionality, just at the high level, it is understood, but what is really important to also acknowledge that additionality is actually not something static, it evolves. The purpose of the carbon market is to channel the financing to decarbonization efforts that cannot be sustained without the carbon market's finance. Once this sustainability is achieved, either through the scale or movement along the technology learning curve, the project may not be additional anymore. This is what's happening to lots of renewable projects, which apart from the least developed countries, are no longer additional. It doesn't mean that they were lower quality or they were not important. At the time of in the point of the time where they were developed, they were crucial. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing technology that are emerging, that are crucial to channel the finance into the carbon markets, but with the time we expected that it will be sustainable on its own. The part that I want to talk a little bit, and this is also related to the question somebody from the audience asked previously, is the leakage. So what we're seeing from the buyers is increased focus on the leakage, and while previously the leakage was limited to the project boundaries. So what we say, okay, we're not going to cut the trees within the project boundaries, but we're going to cut them outside the project boundaries. And as long as the buyer was assured that that's not happening, they were comfortable. Because of increased role of technology and increased focus on the transparency within the supply chain, now leakage is looked at much more broadly. So when we're talking, for example, about the avoided deforestation, it's not enough that we're not going to cut the trees in Malaysia, but the timber company will move to the PNG or Africa or Solomon Islands. It's really looking at the challenge that we're facing from more global perspective. So it's ensuring that this market leakage is not happening. And as I say, all different types of the buyers who are engaging are increasingly looking at this. So it's becoming more and more important. I want to talk briefly about the community because it's super important. There is also a perception that when we're talking about the community in the context of the carbon markets, we're just focusing on local communities, indigenous owners. And it's super important, right? We cannot bypass the FPIC. We cannot shorten the time that the FPIC is conducted. But when we're talking about the communities, we're talking about the broader group of the stakeholders. Again, bringing into the context of Malaysia, for example, in the context of the broader economy, when we're talking about the financing from the carbon credits and revenues from carbon credits, we need to also think how does it impact, for example, timber industry, how the local communities that were accessing this forestry are being incentivized through the alternative types of income. So the stakeholders mapping, when we're looking at the project, is very important. And the biodiversity in a different methodology will interact with ecosystem different ways. So while we, for example, acknowledge that, value of the forest is enormous, it's really also important not to discount other types of ecosystems. So the last thing we want is replace, for example, savanna with the forest. So looking at all those three pillars simultaneously through the different layers, it's super important. Now, in terms of the projects that we work and how the key success factors and challenges demonstrate itself, again, bringing into the context of Malaysia. So we mentioned this before, that the Vera gold standard, all other standards have been around, and they've been really responsive to the demand for specific methodologies. However, the world is changing, our needs are changing, so what we're expecting that the project developers should not be constrained by existing methodologies. We have the example of the methane avoidance projects in Mexico, where the methodology didn't exist, and we work with the gold standard to expand the methodology to fit for the purpose of the Carbon Wave, which is the company in which we invested. Just to give other examples, utilization of the technology, and I'm not talking here about the hydrogen or duct projects, I'm talking about utilization of technology within the nature-based solution. The MRV, which was also touched upon with the previous panel, it's super important in terms of establishing baselines, in terms of measuring the biomass and the carbon content, but also in terms of structuring the project. So one of the projects that we have in Australia, which is human-induced regeneration projects, which allows collaboration between the carbon projects and the herd management on the land. In that context, technology is also used to see how the cattle are moving around the projects, how the water holes are being positioned to avoid a situation of overgrazing. Community involvement, I talked about this previously, but there's lots of criticism out in media, and we all recognize that we need the continuous improvement, but sometimes unfair criticism. If we involve the communities from the very beginning on the continuous basis, this criticism can be mitigated. Financing, there's different approaches to financing, and we probably will touch on this a bit later as well, but it's really important that the financing that we look at sourcings for the project which developed is really sustainable. So it's cannot be one type of the financing. We cannot just hope that at the day that the credits are issued, they're going to be bought at the exchange in the spot market. There needs to be a little bit of pool of financing for the initial OPEX of the projects to ensure that the communities' activities that were leading, for example, to the deforestation are addressed through the alternative source of income. And one of the projects in Brazil, we're getting a feedback through the local communities that they want to receive the income for the period before the project actually generates the credit. So it's really important that the project is well structured in terms of financial financial commitments. The one thing that I just want to briefly mention is the continuous improvement in all projects that we're looking at. Example here of landfill gas in Australia, the policy continues to change and the projects need to reflect it. So sometimes it means that over time the project will issue less credits because the policy is changing, so the expectations are increasing, hence the baselines is moving. Now, just briefly, and this is just going back to the initial keynote speeches, there's enormous role for the host countries to support the project development. In terms of the Malaysia, what I haven't put it in there, there's obviously an important element of stimulation of the demand, and that comes from the local domestic market. It comes from local corporates using carbon credits to meet their voluntary targets. But in terms of other elements of the host countries, it's the readiness. So again, Dr. Raza mentioned it, it's the policy, it's the stakeholder consultation, it's the collaboration within the ecosystem. I think Louis mentioned that within the ecosystem of carbon credits, we have so much talent from different industries that we need to build it. There needs to be consistency. That is one risk, that when we're talking to the buyers of carbon credits, they're concerned about having invested in the stranded asset because the policy changed and they no longer can export those credits and use them for the mitigation in alternative jurisdiction. Simplicity. Now, giving my first slide, it's impossible to achieve it. You know, we know it's complex, but let's not overcomplicate it further. Let's use Vera, gold standard, other standards for the methodology that already exists and just build the new methodology where there's an existing gap. Transparency in policy, processes, and fees. This is super important. There are jurisdictions that are already a little bit more progressed in terms of setting a framework for carbon markets and development of carbon projects. What we're seeing from the investor is the need for the clarity of the fee structure. They don't want to see any surprises. They want to be able to actually build the financial models that ensure that the project in long term are sustainable. So if they aware that they're going to pay $100 upfront, it's $100, it's not $10,000. So this is probably really important. I touched briefly on the signaling that's talking about the demand drivers, but also it's talking more broadly about the commitments through the domestic markets, policy stability, investments. So for example, for the government, there is opportunity to provide the solution like the sovereign bonds, which invest in the carbon credits, or being a buyer of the last resort. And ecosystem support, which is exactly what you're doing already through establishing of BERS in Malaysia and establishing your handbook, so that's already happening. So that was very briefly from me. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I hope that was helpful for everyone.
Thank you very much, Anna. And I think, Anna, we will just do the Q&A at the end because I can see that time is really quite running out. But thank you very much for sharing such a wealth of information. And second, we would like to just call upon Sadanan, if you could share on your experiences from the EKI Energy Services. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, again. Hi. Sorry. So here I am right now to introduce you to the EKI, what exactly Enking International does, what services we offer, what are the challenges that we are facing as a developers, you know, on daily basis, and and what are the key success factor and what we are looking forward to, what we are anticipating from the market, and what type of projects that we will see in the future is something that I will focus on in this presentation. So very quickly about EKI, we are based out of India. Our headquarters is in Indore, Madhya Pradesh. That is the cleanest city of India. And we have been, we are also listed in stock exchange. So one of those world's company who is listed in stock exchange, that is in Bombay Stock Exchange, BSE India. We have been in this market for last 15 years, and we hold a very big portfolio of projects as well and carbon credits as well. So EKI is kind of a one-stop solution for all your climate change and sustainability related businesses. We are also a gold accredited provider of CDP. I'm sure many companies are right now focusing on sustainability as well, ESG reportings and all. So EKI is also a accredited provider for CDP reporting. We are providing a lot of services to customers for their net zero targets. We have our local presence in more than 15 countries. So as I told you in my introduction, I have been focusing on Southeast Asia. So we hold a very strong presence in countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia and Philippines. And we really want to make it happen in Malaysia as well. And for that, we need support from government, from, of course, exchanges like Bursa, and as well as private project owners. Apart from that, we have a very strong base location in Turkey. We are also there in MENA region, that's in Dubai. We are there in North Africa and African countries like in Egypt, Jordan, then Kenya, Ghana, Malawi, and as well as in Latin area in Argentina and Mexico. So we are trying to set ourselves in those countries which are, coming up with, they have a potential to generate carbon credits, and that's where EKI is all about. Quick introduction to our services. We have 4 major verticals of services that we are providing. So first is definitely carbon and ESCs management. In that we talk about carbon financing, carbon offsetting, neutrality, IREX, and as well as plastic credits. So we help projects to develop carbon credits. So we basically are providing a turnkey solution. So we are there in the project right from the beginning stage, whether there is a requirement of funds to finance the project, or if the funds are there, the projects are already there on ground, we are there to focus on, we find the feasibility of the project. We take the project for validation under different registries like VERA, Gold Standard, CDM, GCC, the voluntary. We have a very big share in the voluntary carbon market as well. We are there in the verification. We closely work with DOEs, the auditors as well, and then we issue the credits, and we also help the credits to trade in the market. So as I told you, we are a one-stop solution. We are there in the entire ecosystem of developing these carbon credits. The second is, and one of the most important, I think, that is where, just because a lot of ETS are coming up, national ETS systems are coming up, so we also have a service for capacity building where we help the countries or government organizations for developing the capacity. We are there for domestic ETS, CBAM, CORSIA. Sustainability, yes, it's one of those verticals which is growing very fast for us here at EKI, where we provide different services, and as well as we have a lot of opportunities for climate investments. Now, what type of projects? As I told you that EKI has been in this business for last 15 years, and we have been just hardcore focusing on developing credits, developing carbon projects. So these are the major projects that we have focused on. These are the major projects where we have worked upon, and we have our technical expertise. It includes biogas, reforestations, of course renewable energy is there, but there are a lot of constraint these days on developing carbon credits from renewable projects. So we have expertise in EV, waste disposable, waste handling project, waste to fuel, cook stove projects, clean water drinking projects, sustainable agriculture, landfill, waste to electricity. And mind you, these projects, apart from renewable, and the projects that we have developed is something that we are very much focused on in Malaysia as well, because we see an ample amount of opportunities here in Malaysia, especially in waste handling projects, from palm oil or let's say biochar. These projects are something that we can work upon together and develop credits, and of course we already have an exchange now in Malaysia which can help us to trade those credits. Now, as a project developers, like what are the challenges that we have faced over the period of time, right? These are the major challenges that we face on daily basis with regards to when we go and start working on any project. The first is, of course, additionality, data collection and monitoring, stakeholder engagement, permanence, project documentation, carbon pricing, regulations, and market accesses. Until and unless these challenges are not solved, it is very difficult for any project developer to develop a project into carbon credits or from any GHG registry, okay? The first and important is, of course, additionality, which is like demonstrating that the project emission reduction or removals it's an additional to would have occurred without the project. It's a very important aspect these days, to prove an additionality, which is where renewable projects are sometimes, they are facing problems in proving the additionality. But here the other sectors are still open. The data collection and monitoring, of course, we have three major. So generally, when we pitch to any client, when we go to any project owner and we discuss about that how this entire ecosystem will be developed, how the project will be developed. So we found out that there are 4 major stakeholders into this entire scenario once a project is developed in carbon credits. The first is, of course, the project owner. Then we have developers like EKI. We have the DOEs, and of course the registry. Data collection and monitoring is a very important aspect, because without that the project is not feasible, or it cannot happen. So I can, while signing an order or when closing a deal, we talk on the numbers a lot. And these numbers are something that will be coming on the future. I can show anything on an Excel sheet, but reality is all depending upon the data collection and monitoring, and how these data are monitored and collected. That's a very important aspect, and we take care of it a lot. And adding to that, these days even the sustainability indicators are something that needs to be there on every project, and it's all related. So more the data is clear to us, the more data are monitored well, the sustainability indicators are there, it helps for to get a better carbon pricing as well. Then comes the stakeholder engagement. We have NBS, we have community-based projects, where a lot of stakeholders are involved, and those involvement is not just for 1 or 2 years. We are talking on at a very large scale. At the time span for this entire engagement is quite a long. So to make sure that all the stakeholders are well managed and engaged within the party, everybody is working towards one single goal, and they all are on the same page, is a very important aspect. Then of course permanence, that's something. Additionality and permanence is something that we need, that goes hand in hand, and those are the very 2 important aspects in developing the credits. And these two are the major challenge that we face on regular basis. Then of course project documentation. Data collection and project documentation goes hand in hand for us, where the data collection monitoring depends on the project owner, and after that the project documentation, to write the PDDs as per the standards, as per the requirements of the DOEs in something is very important on the success ratio of any project. Then comes the carbon pricing and market access. Carbon pricing, as I told you, these days the buyers, they look for qualities in the credits, right? And these qualities are, we achieve those qualities once we have proper additionality, we have proper stakeholder engagement, we have the documents ready on time as per the requirements, and that's how the carbon pricing, and how easy it is for any project to get into a market, to go into the market and get the indicators from the buyer is very important. So for example, the pricing for a technological based credits is different than what you see on nature based solutions, right? So these are the factors which makes it very important for us. And again, regulatories and compliances. These days the way market is evolving, the countries are evolving, they are taking this kind of initiatives, this climate change so seriously that they come up with their own regulations, right? So for example, in this year we have heard that India, some news came up on the ban of Indian export for carbon credits, but that was not true. So it's like there is a lot of clarity that is required. There is these kind of regulatory measures and compliance measures, makes it very, very challenging for us, developers like us as well, to develop credits. Now, what's the key success factor? Of course, the factors are very simple. It's what the challenges that we are facing is we need to solve them. That's where the entire game is to make a successful carbon credit project. Firstly, when a project comes in, we need to see whether there is a methodology available or not. If there is no methodology available, it won't be possible for any developer to generate carbon credits for it. So either there is a method already available, or we need to, revamp those methodologies, something that we look for. If required, we solve these methodology problems as well. We look for methodologies, or we actually go to the registry body and guide them and tell, we ask them to revamp their methodologies as well. Then, of course, additionality assessment, positive stakeholder engagement, project financing. Sometimes EKI does the project financing, and sometimes we also have, companies, financial banks approaching us for that. So we take care of that particular part as well. A very robust project design. So these kind of projects, any carbon credit project, let's say, it takes time, to develop and generate credits. It's not something that you go for registration today and the registration happens the another hour and you start developing credits from tomorrow, let's say. It doesn't happen like that. The nature-based solution projects can take more than 2 years, 3 years to develop credits. A normal project also, it takes around more than 1 year to develop to come to that stage where the credits are being issued. So we need to make sure that we manage the time well, and for that we need to have a very robust project design where we manage well with whatever is required as per the registry and as per the DOEs. Then comes the accurate baseline determination. If the baseline is not determined accurately, the number of credits which will be calculated will make will be false. You won't get an accurate number of carbon credits from those projects. We need to have a very robust data collection monitoring. Post-project planning is also very important, guys, because it is, as I told you, it's just not for an year or two. The project will start issuing credits for, let's say, maximum of 15 years, where we need to renew the crediting period, and it can generate, so the engagement is for 15 years, let's say, it's for 20 years, 40 years. So we need to have a proper post-project planning as well. And lastly, effective legal and ethical consideration. I think these days, as I told you earlier, that you never know tomorrow morning what news comes in, where they doubt on the credits, on the type of credits, on the type of project. So ethically, consideration has to be taken care very seriously these days, because the buyers, they look for these kind of consideration on their projects. Now, focusing on, we all know that, the types of project that is already there in the registries. But these are the projects where we feel that, the market demand will come from the buyers, and they have a lot of opportunities, especially in Malaysia as well, where we can develop these kind of credits. So that includes waste handling project, methane avoidance projects, livestock and manure management, biochar, carbon capturing and storage, agriculture, transportation, and community-based projects. So these are the projects where we can work it out together in Malaysia as well, and in Southeast Asia region, because there is a lot of opportunities available out there to develop credits. So we feel that this is something that the future will hold for us. I do not want to go in depth or far in future, because you never know what's going to happen next. But what we see is that this is the trend that we can anticipate in the coming time. So yeah. This was just an end to my presentation. I am here open for questions and answer. Would like to hear your comments as well. But again, having said that, we are here and we would like to be locally placed in Malaysia. We would like to have our office in Malaysia as well. So we need support from the government, where we can, either by, giving us support locally, reaching out to the project owners, where together we can develop projects and carbon credits. So by any chance, if you wish to talk to me, my contact details are here. You can do me a WhatsApp or email. Thank you very much and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sadanan. And I'm glad that the presentations really from both Anna as well as from Sadanan, thus far they have actually confirmed and helped to validate the VCM handbook in terms of identifying the opportunities as well as the challenges and certain key success factors. Now, I would like to quickly move on now to my next speaker, Boon. Boon, if you'd like to just take the floor is yours. Thank you.
Right. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to start up with, I think I kind of leave the mystery behind why Shell as an energy company actually involved in this natural carbon solutions, nature-based solution space. And well, as an energy company, I think there's urgent need for us to deliver the worst energy needs at the same time to address imperative of CO2 reduction and also protect the nature. I think Shell, we want to do part of the global effort in addressing this climate change. Therefore, in the sense that we have set a net zero carbon target by 2050. And of course, to give you an idea for an energy company like us, what does it mean by net zero by 2050? Our emission peak at about 1.7 gigaton per year in 2018. net zero means to bring this down to zero for our scope 1, scope 2, i.e. Our operation, and also including the energy that our customer use as well. So this is indeed a tall order. And if you look at it, as there's no one single solution. And we have identified about 6 levers that we can pull. And natural sink is one of them. And then strategically, Shell intend to use carbon credit to offset some certain part of our customers' emission. And we're going to do this to be aligned with our hierarchical, i.e. to first avoid, reduce, and then only compensate. So this is the reason that we involve in the nature-based solution. And of course, the next question is, why nature? I think a lot of people here probably is convinced that nature actually hold a very large capacity for CO2, right? And 2 aspects of it. One is cost-effective, and the other scalable. And of course, and the other aspect of it is actually by investing in nature, we actually almost like buy one, get 3 free, right? We actually will enhance at the same time, enhance the biodiversity, we'll protect our environment, and we'll increase the livelihood of the local community who's living in there. In that sense, Shell directly invests to protect, enhance, and restore nature ecosystem that across from forestry, is the most common one, to blue carbon in the coastal, in the mangrove in the coastal area, and wetland, and also agriculture and grassland. Dr. Riza mentioned about in the carbon space, a lot of us are actually startup. Yes, indeed, I think I completely agree with him. Shell Nature-Based Solution was established about 5 years ago. And just to let you know that we have been involved in environmental product carbon trading since 2003. However, we realized that the only way that we can more effectively get access into high quality and high integrated carbon credit is directly invest ourselves. And today, we have presence globally. We have actually started up a project, about 20 projects across the globe, and also we established multiple platforms as well. And Asia is actually one of the mature area. And in 2022 itself, we have invested about 70 million indirectly into nature-based solution. Now I'm going to move to a little bit of project sharing with you. The first project that I want to share with you is we call it a Project Tasia. Basically, it's a reforestation project that involves about 10,000 hectares of land in the southern Philippine island of Leyte and Bilaran. And this is the first of its kind in Philippines as such. The area that is concerned is degraded today, and it has actually gone through a significant loss of forest, both due to actually legal and illegal timber logging, agriculture conversion, and wildlife poaching as well. So what we have done is actually we work very closely with our partner of University of Sunshine Coast and Visayas State University in Philippines. Basically what we have done is we leverage the research experience and the outcome of what they have done and throughout to actually implement the large-scale reforestation in the degraded area. And this project at the same time also protect and enhance the rich biodiversity in the area of Philippines Island. Now, we talk about our partner. At the same time, we work very closely with the local community. In this case, it's called People Organization. The People Organization are legally allowed or actually contractually allowed to, on behalf of the Philippines government, to look after the forest, for maintaining it, at the same time for actually reforest it as well. And we have started a project last year, and planting season was in June last year, and to date we have done about 200 hectares, more than 300 seedlings, and we restore it with native tree. And we'd like to share that actually we have achieved about more than 90% survival rate, which is a very important aspect of reforestation project. And I mentioned about actually partnering with the local community. This project, besides reforestation, besides restoring the biodiversity, we actually bring forest and non-forest-based benefits to the community. We actually employ the local community, or the people organization throughout the entire value chain. Basically, start up from the nursery setup. We help them, we give them financial support to do that, help them to pick the right seedling, and then to transportation, handling of all this seedling, which is require actually a bit of hand-holding, and then also planting as well. We teach them what the capability of capacity, build their capacity in planting area, because sometimes if you don't, then the tree will not survive, and of course, with monitoring and patrolling the area. And this not only bring the forest base, but also a non-forest base. At the same time, we help them with bookkeeping skill, we build their financial management skill. And in short, this project actually improved largely the livelihood in this community. Now, the next project that I actually would like to share with you is sustainable rice in India. Of course, rice is a hot topic today, not just in Malaysia, but in Asia as well. And this project actually is aimed to reduce methane emission by working with the farmers, paddy farmers, to help them to adopt, I would say, resource-efficient agriculture practices, such as alternate wet and dry and direct-seeded rice. And you must be wondering, why rice? Yes, it's an important staple in this part of the world, but a lot of you, including myself, we didn't realize that actually rice cultivation attributed to about 10 to 15% of methane emission in the world. And of course, for all these rice cultivation country in Southeast Asia, it means a lot more. At the same time, when you do this, we actually can help to improve the ecological system. We can reduce the scarce water resources that is required, and also improve the productivity of farmer, at the same time, their income. Now, is it easy to change agriculture practices? I think the answer is not easy, especially in age-old practice. The farmers are so used to seeing water in their paddy field, right? And I have not described how our first phase is about 25,000 hectares. And unlike Australia, unlike US, the farmers, they actually own a larger size of acreages. But in India, it's 1 to 2. So for 25,000 hectares, we are dealing with about 8 to 12,000 farmers. So you can see that it is a huge stakeholder and complex and systematic engagement plan that we need to put together. As you can see, we need to organize a very systematic farmer training to help them to understand, to buy into that practices, and most importantly, we need to handhold them throughout the entire planting season, at least for the first year. And there will be a lot of problem, because if this is not being done correctly, they will produce wheat, and then it will actually reduce their productivity, and they don't like it, So that is a key thing. And in that sense, we actually leverage technology here, right? And as you can see, with this number of stakeholders, manual MRV is a challenge. So we introduce digital MRV. We actually bring in the field officer to work with the farmer, so to help them to with the digital MRV. And we also deploy drone that can actually understand. They will use learning. So instead of using people to access, to set the baseline for the farm, to see where it's wet, where it's submerged, where it's dry, we actually train the drone to understand that, so that it will actually hugely reduce the cost. And actually, it will promote transparency and quality as well. This is probably my last slide. We have developed projects across the world, globally. I think we have managed to have some good lessons learned. I kind of summarized into 3 aspects of it. First of all, really leveraging technology and research partnership. As I shared before in my 2 examples, the reforestation project in Philippines is really making use of our partners' research result for the past 10 years. And I share with you about drone that actually can hugely reduce the cost and help to scale, and also at the same time improve the transparency and quality of it. And of course, we talk about research partnership as well. In our India project, we work with ERI, which is an International Rice Institute, to actually measure to use chamber measurement to measure the greenhouse gas that's emitted from the field. Now, the second of all is in Asia, you almost cannot run away with it. For any MBS project, stakeholder engagement is important, especially local community. Carbon credit is just carbon credit, but the effort all comes from the stakeholder and community that is on the ground. So we require actually boots on the ground. We require a good partnership. So the key is really to identify a good local implementer and good partnership that share the same value, the same strategy. And we also look at the number of the this stakeholder we need to address. It's important for us to come up with actually a very structured guideline and approach towards them. Last not least, we talk a lot about integrity. We talk about quality. We know all of this is boundary condition of our project, right? And really, what is transparency? Transparency is to make sure that the stakeholder that we're engaging know what is the carbon project. As you can see, the challenge that we need to translate a lot of our material into different multi-language with the local stakeholder to help them to understand so that they know what they are involved in. And quality, Vera, of course, is continue to increase the standard, which is important. So therefore, as a project developer, we need to make sure that we actually have a robust baseline so that we can cope with the increase and improvement of all these standards. So I hope that's helpful to all of you. And then, of course, I'm open for any more questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Boon. And actually, Boon, I find that your sustainable rice project is really very interesting, given that Malaysia, we do have, of course, agriculture from paddy is very important to us. And I think last but not least, of course, Juan, please come to the floor here. We are looking very much, looking forward to your Quamut project presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I have mostly pictures, so I hope you don't get sleepy during my presentation. So I'm going to have short slides of what we have done over the years with the Quamut project. First of all, a brief introduction about the company Permian Global. And in case you were wondering what does Permian mean and why are we call ourselves Permian, actually, Permian comes from the period where there was the largest fifth extinction on the planet. And the idea behind the name was to remind ourselves how fragile our planet is. According to some scientists, we are now in the sixth mass extinction, and now it's human-driven. So we find the opportunity through carbon finance to try to address this problem together with all the consequences of climate change. We have a presence in different parts of the world. Currently, 3 active projects in Indonesia, Malaysia, and in Brazil. And we have, actually, our portfolio has grown dramatically the last 2-3 years, together with the capacities in-house. We're a mission-led company. We put the impact that we want to achieve first than what we expect to profit out of it. As before, we base our approach on strong partnerships, and that was highlighted many times during today. And that's very important. Partnerships not only at the government level, but also with the communities and the partners that we work on the ground. And also we have had a long experience. I already mentioned about myself, but the company has been established for almost 16 years. This is how we operate, and this is, I think, quite standard across the markets. How do you make an investment decision? So there's a stage on project origination, then the investments are deployed, and then you execute the project. What I wanted to highlight here and what makes this company different is that we start deploying the finance from the start of the project date, and not only on the studies that need to be done to comply with the requirements of the standards, but also to fulfill the expectations that we have made with the communities. I've seen, and it has been said today, that there are many new players in this market nowadays because the market has boomed. And what I've seen in many cases that the expectations are raised in the communities that are involved in the projects. And sometimes the offer is that, yeah, once we sell the credits, you will get your benefits. Sometimes this doesn't materialize or takes a long time. So we take that delivery risk, and once we start the project, we already start sharing or providing benefits to the communities. So now to the project. This is the Kwamut Rainforest Conservation Project in the Saba state. It's next to a very big, large protected area in Danum Valley. So we are happy to support the connection of this large protected area in Danum Valley with this area, which was initially a timber concession. And the decision was to turn this timber concession into a protected area. As mentioned before, it has been validated with the VCS standard as a triple gold, means that the highest level in terms of community, biodiversity, and climate. And we implement this project with very strong partners, with the Sabah Forestry Department, RBJ, Pacos Trust. Probably some of you know this is a very strong community-based organization in Malaysia. We're very happy to have their support. And with CERP, it's an institutional research organization with more than 30 years of experience in Southeast Asia. So this is when the project started. There was a big announcement back in 2015. And at that time, the markets were not what they are today. So it was highlighted in some news at that time. And it was, I think, a very important commitment by the government to agree to look at carbon finance instead of timber at that time. This is where we are today. Probably you are familiar with the project cycle, but if you're not, I'm going to give a quick explanation. So you start with the design or the feasibility of the project. Then you need to do the documentation for the standard, which is called the PDD or PD in some cases. You go through a validation. Then you register your project with the standard Vera. You implement, execute what you promise that you will be doing in your document, in your PDD, project design document. You verify the project, then you go through the issuance, and you continue the cycle every time. This is the project cycle. And it has taken us a long time to get to where we are since 2015. The world went through the pandemic for some years. In the case of this particular project, there were changes in the governance in the communities. So many things happened. And here we are today, and at the last stage, waiting for the last step of bearer review to issue the credits. I'm not going to go into the details here, but just to highlight that the project aims to deliver these three impacts in terms of community, biodiversity, and climate. And we have identified different activities, all aimed to get to this overarching goal, is that to promote sustainable development through the conservation and promoting natural regeneration of forests. As said here, the mission is not to make money here. The mission is to get an impact on the ground for communities, for the climate, and for biodiversity. So I'm going to describe these benefits. What we have done in this project, as I mentioned before, is called an improved forest management type of projects. In the carbon markets, in the forest carbon markets, and I have a very short time, I'm going to be faster, but you have different types of projects, from avoidance of emissions, from enhancement of carbon stocks, sequestration projects. This is called improved forest management project that will not only avoid emissions, because you're not extracting timber, so you're avoiding those emissions to be released, but because of the impact, you are also helping the forest to restore, and that will sequester carbon from the atmosphere. This is a typical picture of timber concession. As you can see, it's not only the timber that is extracted that generates the emissions, but also the impact of the logging operations. Roads are open, landing areas are cleared, and that generates emissions. But it's not only the emissions, but also all the other impacts associated with these operations: sedimentation, loss of biodiversity, and so on. This is a picture of our area, and I highlighted this point of a former road that you saw in the picture before. This is how the forest regenerates when you stop doing logging. And it's not only that, but we also found that the streams, the water, is also clearer, fish for availability for the communities, and so on. So in order to protect that, and there was a question before, we have near to real-time monitoring This is a quite remote area for now, so we use helicopters massively. We do it together with the Forest Department, the South Forest Department. We also deploy drones, and we have a team on the ground to do the patrolling and surveying. We are in the process of training the communities around the project area to help us the monitoring as well. Now with the communities, there are 2 clusters of villages outside the project area in the north, and they are more or less 3,000 people. So this is where they are located. One of them, these groups, the group cluster B that we see here, they don't have any access by road. They can only access through boats. And the communities on the left, the Karamwa communities, they do have access, but still with the capacities, the infrastructure for education, electricity is still limited in many cases. So we started the consultation process with them back in 2015. There was then the pandemic period and many other circumstances, so we need to re-engage with them after we were able to get into the communities. So we did this FPIC process, as it's called, and resulted in this mechanism how we would contribute to benefit their livelihoods. As I mentioned before, when we were able to implement activities before 2023, actually in 2022, the communities decided that they need first access to clean water and a boat to bring the emergency situations to the hospitals in the community because they don't have access to roads. So that's what we already did. And here, people already installing the pipes in one of the communities. The boat has been already bought for them. They also suggested that we should explore opportunities to develop possible ecotourism in the area, to develop some productive activities like these cocoa plantations. So, since sorry I'm running because we don't have much time, but I'm happy to answer questions afterwards. In terms of biodiversity, we did a very intensive inventory. We have identified so far 29 mammal and 12 species that are in the category of rare or threatened and endangered species. Among them, we have the pygmy elephants, the orangutans, helmeted hornbills, beautiful birds, and many other animals. We have deployed camera traps across most of the concession, where we can capture some of the images that you can see here, and they were also used in the introductory video. This is something also very cool. We have installed sound recording systems in the forest, and we are using AI technology to identify within all the noises and the sounds that you get in the forest, what species are within the forest as well. So this is also very cool. And as such, this is something that has been recently announced. This project has been ex-ante rated by one of the rating agencies, similar to Silvera. B0 is another rating agency that found that this project gets to the highest quality level today in the world as an improved forest management according to their standard. Is it great, huh? Yeah, well, thanks. I was expecting that. So why didn't we get the highest? Because this is the type of projects that we have. Nature-based projects will always have a risk associated with them. Now you have a forest, you can protect the forest all the time you want, and there can be a hurricane and it can be destroyed. So that's why we didn't get the highest, but what the possible highest we got, we have it there. So very quick, last slide. What are the challenges? As I mentioned before, we have had a very long process to get where we are, but what was important here is to be very patient, also to take a lot of risks, financial risks, especially reputational risks. We went through the pandemic, but here we are. We have today high costs in accessing the land, but we are deploying very sophisticated drones as well. I'll be happy to share some information, but we have found drones with very high range now, 50-kilometer range autonomy, so it's super cool. What we have now identified after all this year, critical factor is to have government support. And we have now today local authorities at the government level, but also at the community level. We have very strong support to the project. Our partners are key, also mentioned many times. CEARP and PACOS are the best partners that we could have ever imagined. What is also a success factor, what we have seen this in other projects, is the commitments with the communities. Never raise expectations that you will not be able to fulfill. We do try to be sincere and very honest to what we commit with the communities, and that's very important. And that's why I mentioned before, we are one, I'm not sure if other companies do, but we take the delivery risk and we already deploy benefits even before we generate any single credit to be sold. Science and technology, very critical, and a lot of experience in our team. And with that, I thank you very much again and happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you very much, Juan. And I really like your last slide, may the forest be with you. So actually, ladies and gentlemen, I've actually prepared a list of questions, a laundry list of questions, and we've actually ran out of time 5 minutes ago. But I'm just going to pose very quick questions to each of the speakers, and I also welcome your questions at the end of it. So Anna, I'd like to very quickly pose you a question, and this is a question that actually has been posed by bankers to us on quite a number of occasions. Now, bankers, when they've dealt with other clean projects, especially renewable projects that came with PPA, they have fixed tenure, fixed tariff, but you know they find it difficult to understand about carbon projects if you don't have a long-term off-taker. How can you de-risk it? How can they even finance this kind of projects, especially when the price of carbon credits, they fluctuate so much? So maybe you can just provide your views on how these carbon projects can be actually financed. Thank you.
Whether it works. We experiencing the same thing. So generally the way you can finance any project is either through the debt or equity. So when we engage with the financial institution, there is exactly the risk that you raised, the merchant risk, so lack of the offtake on the other side of the project. So how can we address it? In the long term, I expect that, as the financial institution become more comfortable with the risk, and they will have an internal mandate to lend to those projects. I think it was raised by the previous panel as well. I think Louis mentioned it, as the insurance companies step in, so they offer the insurance products both at the investor side, at the project developer side, at the buyer side, to manage various risks within the project risk. Mainly, debt finance will come in. What we're seeing, even from the financial institution, is increased interest in the equity participation. So rather than just providing the debt, they want to invest in the project or in the project developer. And on the back of that investment, they either expect the distribution right, they expect the access to the credits, or the access to the financial benefits from the sale of the credits. So what we're seeing generally right now, which is a positive outcome, I believe, for the project developer, is shifting of the interest upstream. So more and more big emitters or potential investors want to co-develop or co-invest in the projects, which means that they're willing to invest in early stages. They provide finance either through the equity or through the prepayment. What that means that the big emitter with, let's say, established history and attractive access to the attractive capital, they can share the benefits of this capital with the project developer. What they expect in return is probably incorporation of the cost of financing the final price, so that price is slightly lower than it would be achieved through the long-term offtake. But they're providing this early stage financing. What they're also providing is they're becoming the buyer of last resort. So after the prepayment has been repaid, they also commit, if the demand dries out for whatever reason, they're willing to purchase the remaining credits at the pre-agreed price. Often they always request to have the access to the first refusal. So if there are any remaining credits, they would like to have the first go at purchasing it. So this is probably what is the good news. We still have the forward offtakes. That financing happens only when the projects are issued, so obviously doesn't address the issue of the early requirements for the OPEX or the benefits that Juan mentioned. So, but this is what I think can happen. As I say, in the long term, I expect that as with any technologies and renewable technologies, the banks will step in with lending, but right now I think we focus on the equity and the prepayment.
Thank you very much. Sadanand, I would just like to seek clarification. Just now you've briefly talked about, in terms of India, your government has actually announced that policy in August. And the reason why we are asking is, of course, for the BCX, we do trade the global credits as well. And of course, in August, the government talked about, India government talked about curtailing the credits because you need to prioritize meeting your own national commitment. Then a couple of months ago, the Indian government actually mentioned that yes, they can export carbon credits, but it's only limited to a list of around 13 projects. One of them is green hydrogen. So what does it mean by those projects that obviously you have already invested, the cook stove, the renewables in India? So maybe you can provide us some clarity.
Hello. Yeah, I hope I'm audible. Yes. Okay. So as rightly said, yes, there was again a news came in, I should say, about the export, the ban on the export of Indian carbon credit. But that's not true. It was just one statement that has been taken and it was all over the news. But that's not the reality. So post that, I mean, even that impacted us. So all our trades were all our clients, they started calling us that, man, what exactly is happening now? So we went to the government again. We asked there for clarification, but it was clarified that there is no such ban. And I want to repeat it again, there is no such ban on any kind of export of carbon credits from India. We are doing it on a regular basis, we are doing it on a daily basis. Because still now, I mean, till there are a lot of investors who are coming in and they want to invest in India for a carbon project. And they are taking carbon credits out of it. We are trading their credits out of it, whether it is NBS or whether it is cook stoves, any project, let's say. There is no constraint. Having said that, for those 13 projects, it's more focused towards Article 6.2. So it takes green ammonia, green hydrogen, offshore wind, energy storage, renewable plus energy storage projects. So these projects, it's all about you can generate credits and it will be traded on Article 6.2 basis. So government is focusing more on that because these projects are very capital intensive and it will bring FDI to the country. So it could be good for overall Indian economy as well. So that was the reason, but there is no such ban on any type of projects. We are all open, and we would like to list our projects into your exchange, and you will see the trading happening out there.
Thank you very much, Sadanan. And very quickly on to the next question for Boon. Boon, I'm sure that you have explored opportunities. You have shared about projects in the Philippines as well as India. I think very quickly, we have to have some federal and state government people. What would your ask be from them?
No, thanks, Dr. Chen. I think the first one a lot of people have been talking about is regulatory. And we know that it's an evolving space. Article 6, local governments start to learn what does it mean by regulatory. But I think that regulatory, first of all, clarity is important. How do the government want to make use of the VCM and carbon project? What kind of role they want to play? And once the government understands that, I think government can do a lot in this area, is what we identify, which is really to not just regulate, but to facilitate and even proponent of carbon project into the policy. So what the government can do is to create an enabling environment to actually mobilize this significant amount of investment that can come into the country, not just to speed up, but at the same time enhance the NDC the government want to implement. I think that's first one. Second as well, I think the last panel session to talk about is talent. I think it is known gap that carbon development skill is at the moment is shortage of in this industry. So while Malaysia is blessed with fire physical resources, I think we actually do not have the talent to actually support the value change along the line. And I think government can do two things. First of all, is really, I would say, to attract the talent to come in and set up businesses in Malaysia. At the same time, actually, I would say is build a capability transfer program by partnering with local implementer. So that's one. So in that sense, we can ensure that the talent and the capability can transfer to local. And second of all, as we touch on as well, is really about building our own pipeline of talent. You know, a higher education institution, you know, by putting courses to help people to really to understand both actually for the fresh graduate, you know, and also for the mid-career life of people who want to switch over to carbon. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So clarity on carbon policy as well as building up a pipeline of these talents. Thank you very much. So Juan, the million-dollar question that everyone has been asking Bursa, when are we going to be able to auction the carbon credits from Kwamut? That's the one question. But the other question is also, of course, your project has been ongoing since 2015, and today is 2023. We're talking about 8 years. I think what is it that we can actually expedite in terms of this project? I know you've hit 3 years of bad COVID periods, but what else can we do to actually expedite this process? Because it is really taking a very long time, your gestation period. So 2 questions for you. Thank you.
On the first question, I was looking, where is our Vera friend here? Where we can direct the question and say, when do we get our project issuing the credits? Because we have already done everything. So hopefully we will get it soon, very soon, sorry. And how do we expect? Actually, the beginning, it took so long because at that time, markets were not where we are today. I think now there's also more awareness at the government level, the stakeholders level, how the potential of the carbon markets. I think it's a different circumstance. We will not expect the next project to take 8 years. I think in the case of Kwamut and Sabah, we have built the trust and a good relationship with the government, so we are very much confident that the next projects will not take that long, and we are already in advanced discussions for several new projects.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now, I'm just going to open the floor for any questions because we are way past time. Are there any questions from the floor? Yes, I can see there's one hand there.
Hi. Hello. Tess. My name is Hafiz. Thank you very much for sharing. A quick question. So land is owned by the state in Malaysia, and logging is a main source of revenue for the states. When we start engaging the states, their main question is, if they go into carbon projects, does the revenue actually compensate with the logging? Now, looking at the price that we are going with right now, it doesn't really compensate. What are your thoughts on how to incentivize the states into going into carbon projects? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hafiz. I'm assuming that Juan, you would like to take this. Any other speakers as well, please?
Thank you, Hafiz. You should have told me before. Good question. Well, actually, what I've noticed is that governments now are not looking into these type of projects only from the financial perspective, but all the other potential benefits that these projects can bring, like what I mentioned, the community work that we do, and other commitments that they need to comply with. CBD commitments, for example, the biodiversity convention commitments, which they will need to fulfill maybe through carbon projects instead of timber concessions. So we hope that the price and that the expectations the price, as mentioned before, will increase to the point in which is convincing enough. But for the time being, I think it's more awareness, is bringing these other features that these projects bring compared to timber concession in order to convince them.
Hi. Hello.
I think you're on.
Just to add what Juan just said and to answer you, about the pricing part. You know, yes, the credit prices have decreased substantially, but there are external factors because of that it has happened, right? But anyways, having said that, even though there are those external factors involved, but project like this, you can see how, I mean, the project has already got certification at a very higher rate. You know, they are getting a very high certification on that. They are getting the CCB label. The buyers are still buying these kind of credits. They are looking for these kind of credits and they are ready to pay money for that because it's providing all the clarity, like there's all the clarity, there's integrity on the project, there's no doubt on the integrity of the projects. The credits are clean. I mean, just look at the presentation he had. He's talking about the biodiversity and it was just not about the money. So I don't see that, you know, these kind of projects will have any impact on the carbon credit pricing, irrespective of what is happening in the global level. However, there will be some hit on that, But you see, there is still time on the issuance part. They can hold up the credits for the time coming in, and buyers are really looking for these kind of credits. So I don't see any pricing problem for the projects like this.
So just from my perspective, two things to answer your question. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
To answer a question directly in terms of the state concerns. The first is the one way of you addressing the changes in the revenue sources is establishing the carbon price. Once you establish the equation is changing. The other one is switching from the timber business, for example, into the carbon credit business is future-proofing the state economy. Because it's not only about the prices of the timber today, it's about the prices of the timber in the future. And we're seeing regulation emerging globally, which actually, for example, ban import of the products from the deforestation into the EU. So in the longer term, while you may have to take a hit today, in the longer term, you're future-proofing your economy by switching from the timber into the carbon credits. That would be my take on it.
Thank you very much. I think we will have only time for one more question. If there's any question. Okay, there's a question right at the far right, please.
Hi, thank you. Sorry.
Test.
Hi. Yeah, thank you so much for your enlightening session. I just want to know that are the carbon credit projects insured in any way? Say, something happened halfway through the contract or the period, and then would you be able to insure, let's say, instead of generating X amount of credits which you're supposed to generate, and then something happened due to some natural disasters, say maybe it's a flood, maybe it's a forest fire, and then after that you won't be able to fulfill what you're supposed to generate. Is there any form of insurance, in any way that's included in the financing of the project? Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm from Kenanga Investment Bank.
Thank you very much for the question. So I think it's emerging. We mentioned it. The previous panelists mentioned. I think Louis said that the work done by Silvera actually provides the ability for the insurance to create the risk assessment framework. So what we're saying that the products are emerging both within the insurance, reinsurance space, as well as brokers. They are separate projects. So, for example, for the examples that you mentioned, the natural resources, probably it's coming up faster because they actually can rely on the actuarial work done by insurance within the natural space, whether it's hurricane, fires, or mudslides, whatnot. So this is already more evolved. There's questions around the different risk within the projects which are not yet addressed, so they are more expensive in terms of a premium, but this is the space that is catching up. So to answer, there aren't many projects that are insured, but there are more and more insurance interested in that space and providing the solution.
Juan, you've got something?
Yeah, very quick. In the case of BERA, there is a risk assessment tool that has different factors: political risk, natural risk, social risks, and based on that, your project is assessed against those risks, and then it ends up in a percentage of buffer pool, where, let's say, if the project has high risk, it will have to discount up to 40%, I believe, of the credits that are not sold in case of reversals or in case the project does not fulfill what was expected. So the lower the risk, the less the discount.
Thank you very much. I would have to close the session already, but I'm just going to give one last word to each of the speakers. What would your call for action be? Thank you.
I think it has been repeated many times. We need the action now, so instead of waiting for the perfection, let's start doing something and learn as we go along. So let's do it now, as I said.
Thank you. Sadanand.
Yeah, I mean, for what I would say is that, yes, there is a lot of action that is required. But before that, I think we need to have that capacity building. We need to get that awareness what exactly the current situation is all about, because the time to think has gone, and it's actually, there's no much time to think on that. We need to take some actions, and for that, we need to create awareness either with organizations like us coming together with the government or, government bodies taking some actions on capacity building. I think that's where we need to start first.
Thank you. Boon?
Yeah, well, I think MBS Carbon Project is long-term commitment and it requires long-term investment because the project relies on natural processes, relies on ecosystem development, relies on ongoing monitoring, adaptation, relies on a lot of stakeholder management. And therefore, I would really urge people who believe in this long-term investment to be resilient, to be patient, because I think the future will be positive.
That's a very positive message. Thank you. Juan?
Well, we will, at least in the case of forest carbon projects, most cases will be involved with communities on the ground. So don't raise expectations to communities. Don't make promises that you will not be able to fulfill, and do things right.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, please join me and give them a hand for this sharing session from these experts. Over to you, Isu. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. And a big